You know, I'm having some trouble getting this stupid straw. I'm a little nervous today, and so I'm shaking, and I've only been trying to do this for 19 years last week, and you'd figure that perhaps somebody could have a better way to put a straw in a can of WD-40. And so I was talking to Saul about it, and he said, maybe you could share that story, but before I do, maybe he said to give some context. So the WD-40 company, and that's our name, it's our brand and it's our name, is about a $330 million company. There are only about 330 of us globally that get up every day to sell WD-40. But the story goes back to 1953. The fog rolled into San Diego, as it did actually the night before last. And at General Dynamics, they were trying to build the Atlas space missile. And when that fog rolled in, it caused moisture-induced circuitry problems in the umbilical cord and actually seeping through the skin. So they put out a bid, and they said, is anybody out there who can help us with this? And Glenn Larson was sitting at the Rocket Chemical Company, and he set to work and he built water displacement formula number 1. And then he made water displacement formula number 2. And 7-Up got it in 7 tries. But it took us 40 tries to make water displacement formula number 40. And that's how WD-40 began. That was 1953. In 1962, Jack Barry joined the company and he said, we're not going to make anything but WD-40. And we're just going to make one thing, and we're going to call the company WD-40 Company. And from the early 1960s until 1995, people got up at the WD-40 Company with a simple mission. If you didn't sell WD-40, you didn't eat. And we grew the brand to what it is today. But the way it grew was really by accident, because people noticed at General Dynamics that the engineers were stealing WD-40 in their little lunch pails. They were taking it home, and they thought, well, wow, maybe we can build a brand. Maybe we can actually sell this stuff outside of the small niche of the aerospace industry. And that began a process. In 1966, Hurricane Carla hit Texas pretty hard. They needed to displace a lot of moisture. And we packed the first truckload of WD-40 by working nights and weekends to ship it out to Texas. So it's true to say that the brand is built on the back of thieves and natural disasters. There are over 2,000 ways that you can use WD-40. I know you're all completely enthralled at this time. You'll go to our website tonight and find out how you can use WD-40 in 2,000 ways. But 8 years or so ago, we were at a speech. Don Soderquist, he's the chairman emeritus of the Walmart stores. And he made a speech and he said, you ought not to have people in charge of tomorrow who have responsibility for today, because the urgent will always supersede the important. I was lucky enough to be there with Gary Ridge, our CEO, and he said, maybe we can do something with that. And about a year later, we created Team Tomorrow. I got the lucky circumstance of being able to lead Team Tomorrow, and our job at WD-40 is to look after tomorrow. So we always lose the blankety-blank, insert your expletive there, straw. For 20 years, people had told us they'd been losing this straw. And we were trying to figure out a way to solve that problem. Remember, we're not smart. We're not distinguished by inspiration, but by perspiration. It took us 40 times to get it right? And we were confusing the notion of cost and value. Very important tenet here. We thought that every time we had a solution, it added cost, and our end users wouldn't find value. And so we kept putting slots in the top to hold the straw. We currently affixed it with Scotch tape, right? We were not adding cost without value there. And we hadn't come up with a solution. And one of the things we do at WD-40 is we partner a lot. There are only 300 of us globally, so we say we do very little ourselves, but we depend on partners to do a lot of it. And I was in my office, and Gad Shannon of Gad Shannon Designs in Montreal had come to visit. He was basically making a pitch. They own an industrial design firm. We call it kissing frogs because it's the job of Team Tamar to kiss a lot of frogs to bring the handsome princes and princesses to the WD-40 company. And Gad was in my office, and he started talking about a toothbrush. And he said, 5 years ago, the toothbrush market in the United States had become a commodity. You could buy a toothbrush for 99 cents everywhere. They were blue, they were green, they were yellow, they were white, but it was still essentially the same toothbrush. And Johnson & Johnson had taken a look at dental implements and realized that there was sort of a hook shape to this implement. And maybe if they mimicked that, they could make a better toothbrush. And they did, and it was called the Reach toothbrush. And I have, and many of you in this room have probably used the Reach toothbrush, which sold at that time for $3.50. They sold millions of them. Today you can buy a toothbrush for $400 to $40 for 99 cents and everything in between. But the point was J&J had figured out how to add value, right? They weren't adding cost. And I said, Gad, that's a pretty good way of thinking of things. Would you like to take a crack at designing a solution to that problem? And he worked at it really hard and came back around and said, we have a couple of thoughts, and maybe we can do something. Remember, this is sort of the iconic thought of what WD-40 always was, and we were now going to actually mess with it. And this is a smart straw. And if you give me a second here. This is what Gad came up with, right? So it's a permanently attached straw that sprays two ways, and so you never lose the straw again. We think perhaps worthy of a Nobel Prize, but certainly a lot of people think that it added value without adding cost, right? So a can of WD-40 at that time at Home Depot, it cost about $2.50. With a smart straw, it cost about $3.75. And so we asked folks, what did they think? And I think it's the middle one there where he says, you're talking about $2 price for $100 inconvenience. Doug, the DIYer, said it was about damn time. And that's really maybe one of the messages of this. This is one of my favorite graphics, by the way. I was really fortunate. Benny's is a store in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Locally here, they put up a billboard to announce the arrival of the Smart Straw. And we were particularly pleased with that one. And there are probably three messages today. First off, I think it's important to recognize that in consumer complaints, you have a rich source of innovation potential. So when people complain and they take the time, it's because they care. For 20, almost 30 years, people had written us letters telling us we're messing up. We had promotions. We would give you 2 cans and put 5 straws in the middle because we knew you were going to lose them. And we loved the stories of people say, I've lost a straw and I go out and buy another can. And we knew there was a problem, but we didn't know what to do with it. So complaints are a rich source of ideas. Secondly, when you think about the idea, realize that cost and value are two different things. It's a struggle that we still fight every day. And Team Tamar will come up with something, sales will say it costs too much. We'll say, but there's more value there. And it's really about the end user value. And third, and maybe the most important thing, Paul Simon said there were at least 40 ways to leave your lover. The WD-40 company took 40 tries. So I would implore and plead with all of you to persevere and persevere with passion. It works for us at WD-40, and hopefully it'll work for us in the room today. Thanks for your time.